Hi class, this is William Anderson again, and in this video I want to talk to you about delivery methods. These are various methods for delivering your speech, and I want to talk to you about four of them. The first one is called a manuscript delivery. In a manuscript delivery, you have your entire speech written out in front of you, and you read it verbatim. Now there is a big important advantage to using this method, and that is this is the only method that precise wording is important. In other words, you are going to say exactly what you meant to say, and perhaps more importantly, you're going to avoid saying something you did not mean to say. So anytime precise wording is really important, this is the only method you should consider using. However, there are two important disadvantages to this method. The first one is its very poor eye contact. With eye contact, we communicate our engagement with the audience. So it's really important, and you're giving it up using a manuscript delivery. Also, this method is very inflexible. As we've talked about before in the course, it's important that you are able to adapt to the facial expressions and the nonverbal feedback you're getting from your audience. Well, if you're staring at your script, reading it, you're not even seeing those facial expressions. You're not even seeing that nonverbal feedback. So because of these two important disadvantages, this method should never be used anytime precise wording isn't important. For most of you, precise wording will never be important. There are a couple of instances where it might be. For example, if you ever find yourself in a very bad legal situation, sometimes your attorney might prepare a very specific statement for you and tell you to read it. Now, sometimes in our normal vernacular, our normal conversation, there are multiple words that effectively say the same thing. But in a legal setting, each word can have a very specific important meaning. And remember, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And so in this sort of circumstance, it could be that the exact wording that you use can have a very big impact. Or if you're a spokesperson for the government, sometimes a government spokesperson making a slip of the tongue, using wrong words, can have a catastrophic effect. So in some of those instances, precise wording might be important. But for the vast majority of you, precise wording will never be important, and therefore reading your speech is generally a bad idea. The second one is memorized. In the memorized method, we spend a considerable amount of time writing out our speech and then much more time committing it to memory so that we can recite it. The advantage to the memorized delivery method is that it allows for very good eye contact. You literally don't have notes to look at. But there are two compelling disadvantages to this method. First of all, it is the most inflexible of the methods. When you memorize a speech, you're really memorizing the flow. You're memorizing not individual words, but rather the flow of the speech. And so if you look up and you're talking to your audience and they look confused, you know you have to go back and provide a different example or a different explanation. But to do so would break you from that flow, making it hard to get back in. The second disadvantage to this is the most inefficient of the methods. By inefficient, I mean you're wasting time committing your speech to exact memory. So let's say, for example, you're giving a 5-minute speech, and a 5-minute speech for most people is about 4 to 5 pages of text, probably closer to 4. Well, if it takes you an hour to write a 4-page paper, and you're really good at memorization, and it takes you 2 hours and you can commit the entire 4 pages to memory, that's 180 minutes that you've put towards writing and memorizing your speech. If you would have taken that same 180 minutes, spent about 10 or 15 minutes preparing a good speaking outline, and then all the rest of the time focused on practicing and polishing your delivery, you would have been able to get, well, if it's 15 minutes, that would leave 165 minutes of a 5-minute speech, and that's 33 practices, I believe. If you practice your speech 10 times, just 10 times, you can dramatically improve your delivery. Here you're giving up 30 practices so that you can make sure you use the right preposition in the right order. That's a bad trade. So it's better to use that extra time practicing, polishing, and perfecting your delivery. And incidentally, when I say practice, I don't mean read the speech quietly to yourself. I mean stand up, speak it like as if you're going to be delivering the speech, because you build muscle memory in the pronouncing of the words, and that's a better use of the time. Because of these two big disadvantages, the memorized method is an anachronism. It's effectively lost in time. Virtually no public speakers use this method anymore. Number 3, impromptu. Impromptu is speaking with virtually no preparation. This is the come-as-you-are speech. Now, this is not a good choice to make, but this is the choice that will be made for you much of the time. Many of the speeches that you give in your life, you will find out you're going to be giving a speech a matter of a few minutes before you're giving it. You might be at a meeting and suddenly the boss looks at you and says, why don't you go ahead and brief us on the project? Or you could be sitting at your office not even knowing there's a meeting going on. There's a knock on your door, your cubicle, or your workstation, and the boss says, we need you to update everybody. Come on, let's go. You have the time it takes to stand up and walk to the room to prepare your speech. And during that walk, your boss is going to be visiting with you. The key to good impromptu speaking is being organized. Organized and confidence will help dramatically improve your impromptu speaking. Finally, the fourth one, extemporaneous. Extemporaneous speaking, you never actually plan out the exact wording you're going to say. Instead, you simply prepare an outline. And as soon as you've got your outline ready, you turn your attention to practicing and polishing your delivery. The advantage here is that it allows for very good eye contact. You want this outline to be very sparse, very few notes, only the least amount of notes that you need in order to make sure that you're able to deliver your speech. By having few notes, it encourages you to look up at your audience. Second advantage is that this one is very flexible. Because you have a very brief outline, if it looks like from your audience's reaction that they get a point and you can skip the next example, it's easy to skip the next example, move on to the next part. Or if they look confused and you need to give another example, it's able to do that and not lose your place. Third, it's very efficient. Because it doesn't take long to prepare a quick outline, most of your preparation time is spent practicing, polishing, and perfecting delivery, which is really where the main benefit comes. Fourth, impromptu or extemporaneous speaking tends to be very well organized. An outline is an instrument of organization and is at the heart of the extemporaneous speaking style. The only major disadvantage to extemporaneous speaking is that it doesn't allow for precise wording. So in the rare occasion that precise wording is important, you would never want to use this method. But because most of the speeches you give in your life, if not all of them, precise wording won't be important, extemporaneous speaking is the best method to use in almost every circumstance. So I hope that this helps in selecting which method to use. Again, the speeches in class are practice for out there. In terms of speeches in class, I always encourage you to only use the extemporaneous method. Thank you.